pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council meeting was called to order. Let's follow the roll.
Mayor Ridenour.
Here.
Earl.
Here.
Ewing.
Here.
Harden.
Here.
Knox.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Here.
Minutes of the previous meeting. Read, approved. So approved. Fiscal officer report.
$1,613,427.23 in all funds, $282,666 in the general fund.
Any additions?
We did have additions today, and you all should have gotten a copy. It's payroll.
If no questions, then resolution 17-10-1 was adopted on November 5.
Earl.
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
Ewing.
Yes.
Harden.
Yes.
Knox.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Okay, let's go to committee reports. Police report.
The annual Waynesfield Goshen Schools Homecoming Parade went well again this year. Residents appeared to enjoy themselves as it was well attended thanks to Mother Nature helping us out with some good weather. The homecoming dance was also held without any issues, but we won't talk about the actual football. It's favorable. As Paul right now, they're calling it this time of year. However, because competition media pages. Just to remind council, 3 months will be selected sometime between the 4th. That's kind of one of the things we fell into last year that took about an hour and a half process into about 4 hours. So we cleaned that up a little bit to make the process a little bit smoother. That actually came as a recommendation by last year's judges, and it made sense to do that. This past Friday, employees had an identity theft training, which is an annual training that council mandated years ago for us to have. Employees were trained on protecting the public's information so they're less at risk, as well as safeguards that each employee can put in place to protect themselves. And I think it went really well, so I was happy we had all the employees here for that. Lastly, I want to touch on the marijuana ordinance that you guys are going to address in old business. I was asked by council to share my perspective on that, so I wanted to just do that briefly. After some research about the issue, I first want to share some information regarding the legislation. Research is clear that not a another way everyone heroin, cocaine, and meth. There is evidence to suggest that today's marijuana can set a patient for years old, which is the age that break old adults. 95% of the individuals use marijuana. For the record, I've never used marijuana. I want to clarify that. Just experience people that say that it's prescribed they use. Marijuana seems to be coming out over to plus secondhand smoke for marijuana is more dangerous than secondhand smoke for tobacco. So clearly, have pain relieving qualities. With the scientific advances currently being utilized, those pain relieving portions can be removed and placed into a liquid form, a liquid that can be regulated by a physician's prescription. A dispensary would not be needed if pharmacies started dispensing it. Issues regarding marijuana and any legalization are far from over at the state and federal levels. The law is likely to change multiple times due to court cases, and we don't yet have any vision on what blanket legalization is going to look like. And you can look at the studies and what some of these other states have done to determine that what they passed is not where they're at today. So lastly, a dispensary in the village increases the probability of an increase in crime. We already see this with tobacco shops, and there's no real tobacco underworld like states like Colorado have seen with marijuana. So what I mean by that is the people in Colorado that sell marijuana legally, they're taxed by their state. The people that are selling it illegally don't have the taxes that they have to pay for dispensing it. So what they do is they actually increase their cost of the marijuana that they previously sold for relatively cheap to still sell it cheaper than without tax. So for instance, 1 gram was $25. If you ever held marijuana, they could sell for $20 and previously for their making more money. So I don't know how that's really going to help with the current illegal use of the marijuana. So ultimately, though, if council's vote will determine if it wants to subject the village to an increased risk for crime versus financial gain, and it will most definitely encourage the village demographic change to occur. So with that, I would ask that you consider passing the ordinance against marijuana. Prohibiting marijuana basically growing and your dispensary. You get the medical card, and yeah, which the state has by yet, but get the legally get card and a certain half all category. Yeah, the village is getting the use of it. It's just prohibiting the dispensaries and the processors and the cultivators.
My opinion was we're pretty much covered by a high revised code and the laws, and like you said, they don't even have them all made yet. I just don't know if we should clog up our files with stuff that we don't know how it's going yet. And I'm not a marijuana user, so
right.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Been thinking about it.
I think what this does is, because there are communities that see that now, yeah, you've already marijuana here, like a lot of it. What I think the key is, unless they you're going to, I think if some way you're going to increase it in the favor, and this point got a tobacco shop, and I can't tell you how many times it's been broken into, and that's just for cigarettes and tobacco of that kind. You know, you get a new, and I'm not trying to make it sound like the sky is falling with marijuana, because I don't believe that's the case at all. But, you know, wherever your dispensaries initially locate, they're going to be targets, and we know that. We've seen that in Colorado and Orange, Washington, stuff like that. So, I think there's, I sit down tweaking all at that point, they'll probably go the medical way to where it becomes a pill form, and there's not change. I pass on just protecting what means. That's all you can always, you know, change over time, but I actually having sir.
The buyer's property has been transacted, and that's complete. That is in possession of the village at this time. We're in the process of doing the Dolan House property, which is the additional acreage that we went after with that same grant and money appropriations, and that's the land adjacent to the park. That is slated to be closed about December 1st. So even this coming November's meeting, I probably won't be able to report because I think it's the first week of December, because they wanted to make sure they had all their paperwork done and everything. So that should close first week of December, and that's what we have on those two properties. And then just for an FYI, this is the end of October. This is about the latest we've done it, but it's extremely easy weather. We're closing the restrooms this week unless there would be any reason not to, because weather is starting to change and when a winterizing, get that locked up and put down for the season. And I'm waiting on a quote back for the water plant, well, the iron filter roof, because it needs repair, replaced, because it's leaking, and plus it was one of the things the EPA dinged us on and said, you know, it needed to be done. So we're waiting on a quote from that. Don't know if that'll get done. We're hoping to still get it done yet this year, but if not, it'll be first part of the spring. So I'll check with the EPA, make sure that's okay. And the only other thing I have tonight is it's that annual time. It's October. I did the evaluations of the employees under my responsibility, and I submitted a letter to the mayor, my recommendation for that, that if council so chooses to give any of them increases, that they have met or exceeded their expectations. And so you to consideration of employees. Well, that's kind of in limbo. We have to do something with the old one. And right now, we were going after a grant that was going to allow us to take the old water tower down. Because, in essence, it being online, it doesn't allow us to use the new water tower full capacity because of elevations. And research, I think summary, they're telling us it could cost as much as $200,000 to rehab it and get it up to standard, and every so many years you have to paint it, or it may cost us like $30,000 to take it down. And so we really, when this was designed to fill the need of the village. So it was our recommendation to consider taking it down, but that grant fell through. So that's another one of the issues that the EPA dinged us on, was the condition of this water tower. And we put into the report, we're looking to take it down. We will keep you posted. And so I know we're not going to get that grant. So we're going to be notifying to fund to that. It would be hard to first take a loan. And so that, again, when time body decision, I see take it do enough instead. I guess that.
Well, after had the Washington see the now it had to go so really 200,000. As long as the old one never
well, the water meters help make make that one more efficient.
Yes.
And the other thing, to talk about that, I think one of the avenues we're gonna need to look at to probably appease all parties is to take it offline. Right now it's online, and explore the avenue, because all the valving and everything underneath it could be as a pass-through. And so all we have is a structure that, because, you know, that may become an issue of whether it's acceptable to keep it online. So that's kind of where we're at. And I think when we get more we were really hopeful that we could have included that into a rehab project to allow that to come down. But ultimately, and Jill and I will be looking at the for that have something in place that we can take it down. And it may take us a couple of years of budgeting to get it in line, to have the reserve to take it down on our own. I'd like to get a grant to do it, of course, but we may have to, and I just think it's better for us to take it down for $30,000 than it is 200-some thousand. Because if you do the 200-some thousand within a 2 or 4 years, whatever the life of that painting is, you got to do it again. You know, on those. So,
At one time it was sellable, but I wouldn't know about it now.
oh, really?
Yeah, companies that come in and take them down and pay you for them, you know.
Well, hey, we'll explore that. That's a reality. I mean, I think we would jump at that opportunity, to be honest with you.
Now, but then they didn't, you know, they didn't want to do it, you know, they wanted, but how efficient is it? How much is it holding this one back? I mean, how much more can this one do up here if that was offline?
Well, this one already will do it, we believe.
No, but I mean, you said it's not using its full capacity.
Well, for
so-
example, I think this is a 250,000 gallon, this is a 75, and I think this is maybe at, for conversation's sake, at 230, you know, or 215. I mean, it's not way down, but we're not up there where we could be. So we have, and the thing, if you think about it, for all these years, the 75,000 took care of the town. So we're above and beyond with our capacity there. Right now, we've got what we have there plus the 75. But barring a catastrophic situation with a fire, which to my knowledge, what caused this to even come on the radar was the pallet shop or something burned, the elevator.
Yeah, the elevator burned.
And this one couldn't keep up or something. Is that what got the ball started? I'm not.
Yeah, they sucked her dry. Walk-Pawk's big aerial thing just.
Yeah, that's what I heard. But based on our ability to sustain, I'm under the impression it was sized to take care of the community.
Well, and again, it's all EPA mandated for the amount of usage, the size you have to have, how much you have.
I don't know what fire was, but now like with the ponds and the farmers making those available, there's other resources to draw that maybe they didn't have, and the equipment draws now like they didn't before, to where they go, you know, and they're able to get accessory water. But that's where we're at with it. And that's all I have there.
Mayor's Court, $2,962 was deposited to the general fund. December council meeting, every year we back it up. My suggestion is just do a resolution to make it the third Monday in December instead of the fourth, and that should take care of that problem.
Do we need a resolution to do it?
Yes.
Because that would be that way every year.
Every year.
Yeah, we didn't have to.
Okay, I'll make a resolution, 17-10-1, 2.
Two. Yep.
So we change the December council meeting to the third Monday of every month of December, every year.
It's gonna be the fourth Monday to the third Monday. So,
Okay, our meeting will be on the 18th this year. Okay, on the employee evaluations at the end of our meeting, I would ask that we go into executive session, we can discuss that at that point, okay? The Buyer property, as Fred stated, is now in our hands. I've done some research and tried to figure out what's the best usage for that property. I've talked to several people about it, and my suggestion, the property was purchased mainly for protection. So anything that we do with it is kind of a plus on top of it. But my suggestion would be to designate that property as part of the park, as a nature section that would be like some grass walk path through, something that the school could utilize for field trips, that type of thing. Put in some picnic tables or whatever, benches, but help with that project. As with any project in town, they exercised the thought that they would like to, just like what they did with the flag, be more of a part of the community and help do things. Where the school kids could go down there, have a field trip, they could make some places, that what they call a shop, could make, they talk about making bird houses, that type of thing. So that's
Just to add to that, Mayor, so they don't get it called off too far, in order to be in compliance with the grant to purchase that land along the other, it has to be maintained in green space. Because that's what the grant money was. So even though you're talking about a type of green space, it does have to per that grant we could do that. As you said, for the
well, walk path and everything on there. Just a nice nature thing. Now this morning, I was very much surprised. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I walked out after a meeting this morning and there was about 5 dozen buzzards flying around that property. Uh-oh. They've been roosting evidently over there, and there was a bunch of them.
Well, they're getting ready to head south, probably.
Yeah. But I was really surprised there was.
Scott said that too. I didn't
Yeah,
say that.
it was pretty amazing. But that's my vision. What you guys' thoughts? Try to get some community involvement. With the school or whoever else wants to kind of help with it. Plus the maintenance of that property being wooded, not real easy to mow and maintain to where. We would not want it to be 6-foot weeds, but we wouldn't want it mowed down to the quick either. Just maintain it as,
It'd be great if there was a wetlands back there.
There's a wet spot.
Is there?
Yeah.
Hey, that work.
Wetlands is dirty work.
Asking you, show she, sure.
Once a wetland, always a wetland. You don't go there.
So it would be your thoughts to move forward in that direction and try to make that happen? Okay.
Sounds good, yeah.
Okay.
Just an FYI, if you do that, I'm in support of it. My question would be, and maybe it's a solicitor's question, since we have a mowing ordinance in town, since it's been identified kind of a nature area, does it get an exemption or a status that would be separate? Because the last thing my department and the chief's department is the comparison of, okay, not here, but there, but if it has a definitive, I mean, I don't know, it's something we need to look at. Does it need an exemption from those guidelines?
That's something we can look into. I have a copy of the ordinance.
Yeah, because the only thing we have is for residential and commercial properties. I don't know if village property is considered commercial.
Or residential. Yeah.
Could be a problem. We better get that cited on.
Well, I think if you just earmark any nature works or any nature activity, that it just is exempt from that
Right.
mowing standard. And it would be up to the discretion of the village how they want to maintain their property. But I think you need to address it at some point, not tonight, but some
I'll bet you Nature Works has some guidelines on that, like the state mows the side ditches, they don't, if there's birds are laying eggs, they don't mow the side ditches, you know?
Yeah, I think,
So,
so
you
if
know,
we could just
this-
look into, I just think we need to
Sure.
be prepared to address that.
Okay.
Can I have a question? Just for my own personal, what is happening with the little house there? I mean,
And where?
back at the park, by the Kylan's house. I had one point had heard
Well, we're just
they
looking
had
at
plans
utilizing, well, we're
on
just
making
utilizing
a
it.
community center
Well,
or.
we just said we've looked at that, but
Okay.
we're just, right now, we just put a roof on to make sure it didn't deteriorate, and just leaving it as is at this point.
It'd be nice to jack it up and move it back there by the recycle building someplace and use the park way better.
Well, you know, the original thought was to be able to utilize it as a community center, so if, you know, some of the elderly want to go there and play cards, they, you know, if you want to have a reunion or whatever. But we're trying to find a way to fund that part of the project to make it happen.
I had just heard that in passing and I just wondered if that was something or
Well, we're just
if I had just
maintaining,
heard
making
it.
sure, you know, that it's not deteriorating, you know, like it was starting to leak a little bit, so we put a new roof
Okay.
on it. And, changed some pump out to keep water out with crawl space and just, making sure that it's healthy.
I was curious.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to old business.
This don't have anything to do with this here, does it? The agreement with landowners and you what?
No, they're two separate.
Okay.
The ordinance did get revised. Reed and the solicitor's
Yes.
office did revise it, the copy that you guys all have for the changes that you had asked for from last month, so those are in there.
What's the difference between this one and the one we've had for 20 years? That I don't have in front of me, maybe you can.
I think, if I could speak from
Shut off,
memory,
Nathan.
and I wasn't here,
Yes.
but I think the biggest thing is, it has a definitive turn-off day within 30 days of being delinquent, where before, it wasn't definitive. It was kind of vague and flexible. But I
There
think
was
with
a
this.
may instead of a shall.
Yeah, and I
Then-
think, yeah, I think that's what it was. And so in other words, And we were looking at the 10th when I was here before last month, and then you guys talked about it. But the attorneys made us aware that by ORC, we can't do it for 30 days from the time it's delivered. So he made that adjustment. So what it boils down to, the way I'm going to summarize it, and then Reed can speak to it, is that the bills go out on the 1st, they're due by the 15th. At the 15th, they become delinquent. And then there's a 10% penalty added. Before, it said, and I think it still does, that at the end of the month, if it's still not paid, it's subject to be turned off, which again, that's subject to. And that was our discretion that we operated. And we still have to operate under that because by ORC, it says you have to have 30 days to terminate service. And so where before, we would be working with individuals and the second bill would go out, and then technically it was almost 2 months before you kind of was able to finalize it. What this is saying is on the 15th, we can, the subject to on the 30th, if somebody comes in on the 30th and says, I can do this or this or this within the next few days, I and Jerry can work with them because of that 30-day window. But the 15th rolls around the month after, we don't have an option. It's off. And it just, and that's where I was saying, it's off. And that's what this is saying. So we don't have any options, it's off. And so that's what this is added. Is that correct, Jill?
Yes.
And that's a correct summation, I think, of everything that's in there.
And then, of course, unless there's any changes that you folks want to make or any adjustments, that's just where we're at now.
The only adjustments we made from last time is there was a slight change in subsection B of subsection 1, where I think it had said that services will not be restored until the delinquent bill is paid in full. And then a $30 reconnection fee would apply for each utility. Well, that would have made it $90, and council wanted that removed, so we removed that provision. There was also a question that came up of what was this policy with respect to veterans, were we allowed to shut off veterans utilities? I did some research and talked with Mark about it. Yes, you're allowed to shut off veterans utilities. The only thing in the ORC I noticed with respect to military is if there's a person who's active in the military utility, can't turn off utilities. Added a sentence at the end of subsection 1, subparagraph A. It said termination of utility services will comply with all federal, state, and state laws and/or regulations where applicable to the village. So if anybody's worried about active duty military members who are deployed, that will cover that. And those are the only changes that were made since the initial draft.
I'll make a recommendation we pass the second reading, ordinance 17-1-9-1 with the changes that was made.
A second.
Miller,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Ewing,
Yes.
Knox,
Yes.
Harden,
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
And then the second part of that was just the agreement that Reed also updated to.
Has everybody got the agreements out? I would recommend doing away with that paragraph where it says the owners and tenants occupants, and just change that to the owners.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see
So what you're saying, Bob, is the utilities would stay in the
And
property
then
owner's
owner's,
name?
yes, name,
Okay,
that would take care of this problem. I know when I had rental properties uptown, that's what I had, it was in my name. And I talked to some other people who's got rental properties, and that's the way they're doing it.
I have rentals and I keep them in my name.
okay. I do know that there was a question about deposits and everything else. If that's the case, that's telling me that if it's kept in the property owner's name and we have the ability to collect, whether through real estate tax or whatever, then as far as deposits being necessary, you wouldn't need it.
Yeah.
Because you've already, that way you're not double dipping, charging a deposit, and then also having the ability.
Yeah, we could drop that, number one, the $200 for residential. In that first section, deposit $200 for residential, $500 for business, or 1.5 times the average monthly bill of all utilities. No state. We need for the owner. Businesses, we don't have to worry about, we leave that in there.
I don't know how the property owners feel about that rent property.
Well, the thing is, I do know that this office continually with renters is flopping back and forth, taking deposit money, giving back deposit money, and we're kind of babysitting the system to where, to me, if the property owner is ultimately responsible for it, why are we going through all these motions to do this?
Shuffle the deposits around.
I guess they could probably collect the deposit maybe.
If a landlord or a property owner that rents or does, you know, they have the ability with their, let's say they collect first and last month rent on, when somebody moves in, they have their own deposit. The money that we have is not our money, we can't just spend it. It's just keep shuffling back. So that keep our pot cleaner and easier. Not do it.
If I may just comment in this discussion, was that we were saying that people use property, which is not intended, but I think it's exception. And so we were extending the state was and that was the property owners. We be doing that, and
Well, then the property owner, if they choose to extend credit to this person, that's their business. Because ultimately, we sell utilities and we're going to get paid for them. So,
And the property owner would have the authority to turn the power off anytime they wanted, basically. It's
well,
all
let
up
me
to
say
the
this.
I think
It's in their name, it's in their name, and I think that we're going to police that. Because if somebody calls up that has utilities in their name and asks me, I need you to turn the water off, I'm going to do a repair. You need to turn the electric off, I'm going to do a repair. We do that because it's in their name. We will continue to do that. Now, the law says, and this is an owner, and our attorney can speak to this, says that you can't turn utilities off to leverage rent. But that's not our department to police that.
That's gonna be strictly between the property owners and the renters.
And the renters.
That's not.
That's a
something that I
renter
think
property
we should-
owner agreement, not us.
Right.
Because landlords have an obligation to provide, habitability on a basis, which includes.
And if they find that they're doing that,
Yeah.
then
They have recourse.
they have recourse in the courts,
Mhm.
but not with us. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
shut off
That's correct.
dates and all that would stay the same. Whether you own it or you rent it out or whatever, that all stays the same. But like I say,
it would make our job easier because then we can't be accused of extending credit. It takes us out of the mix, which I think because ultimately, and I sympathize with property owners, ultimately, we get our money, since we're a public owned utility, we have the leverage of putting it on the taxes, so we will collect. And so that's why I think Mike's talking about we don't need the utility deposit, because we have a recourse.
Well, you know, when there's question, well, the property owner says, we didn't use the electric, we didn't use the sewer and water. Well, technically, you personally didn't, what your property did. So,
I'll just say one thing, this is a big change for somebody that has 6 or 7 or 8 properties. I don't know how many people have how many properties in this town, but
it really doesn't change anything
if they don't have to
for
pay a
them.
deposit.
If there's no deposit, it doesn't change anything, but they have to submit that billing to their renters or include it in their rent, one of the two.
Yeah, I just, man, this is awful quick.
Well, you got another reading, I mean.
Yeah.
And really, I think the main complaint from what I remember from the property owners, or at least last time, was they were more concerned about getting information from their tenants as to if a delinquency bill happened, would they be notified? And they had been using this old form that they supposedly allowed them to do that. But there was some outdated language in there, so I just removed it. And so really kind of the purpose of this form was giving the owners and the tenants an agreement whereby if the tenant became delinquent, the owner could receive that information.
They have to go back and understand where this all come from in the first place, because it used to be everybody had to pay a deposit. And then a lot of homeowners didn't think, man, I've been here 25 years, do I ever get my deposit back or whatever, you know? So that's why the board did away with that, and come up with this. I mean, little steps.
Now,
you know?
there could be a case where a property owner, if they're continually delinquent or whatever, that you could, you know, don't pass go rule somewhere along the line where they would have to put a deposit on hand. You know, you could do that. But right now, I think it's a case of most of our delinquents, correct me if I'm wrong, are from rental properties rather than homeowners.
If I was to speculate, I would say that's correct. It's not that it's exempt only to that.
Right,
But
right.
a majority, I think that's a fair statement.
And so that's where all this kind of stems from, and we have no control over who they put in these properties or anything. All we're doing is selling utilities, you know, and that property uses it, then we're gonna get paid. So what's the easiest way for us to manage that with all this other?
And listening to this, of course, hearing it, whatever we did was slated to be a final reading in November, for which we believe December. I was going to recommend if there was any changes that they would take effect like January 1st. That would give a 30-day window in there.
Right.
If you did choose to go this direction, we may look at, say, you know, as they would look to, you know, change in some of this, look at maybe a February 1st deadline or something like that. In other words, implementation.
Well, I don't think
know.
it's imperative that we try to hurry with this,
Yeah.
but it is imperative that there is a problem, and we need to correct it to the village's best interest.
Exactly.
I don't think the village should have anything to do with this. To me, that's between the homeowner and the tenant. I mean, when you're a landlord, your business, that's your business. And if I was a landlord, I would want the utilities in my name so that I know what's going on with my property. That's why I don't understand. It just complicates everything when it's not in your name. You see what I'm saying?
Well,
I just don't think the town should be involved in between this. It should be strictly between the landlord and the renter. I just don't understand why we would be involved in that. Because in my mind, if they're not paying their utilities, they're not doing some other things they should be doing with the property, which I think the landlord would want to know.
Well, in fairness, in many cases, I often speculate, I have had some acknowledge it, because when there becomes a discussion with my office and property owners about the amount of delinquency and timeframe. And I often say, some will acknowledge it, some won't, but I often wonder if you're delinquent in your utility bill, you're delinquent in your rent.
Right.
And so by their extending that grace there, it's extending ours. And so they choose. I don't be responsible for law as extending credit on somebody else. And that's me. I said this is a new position for me. I brought this up in the past. This was a cleaner and smoother, especially since we're a municipal-owned utility, meaning the electric. Now, most communities have water and sewer already, and there's many communities that require this. The only reason they don't require necessarily gas or electric is because they're not municipal owned. They may be owned by a for-profit entity, and they have their own recourses. But in cases of municipal owned, when we have the avenue for electric, there's property owned town that probably owns your property prior to rule, because that before, and I have seen addresses after I don't think it, and I've said it from a long time, I don't think property owners ought to have a deposit on hand for the village for 20 or 30 years when they're invested in the community. And so I've often said I'd like to see us get it to where it eventually gets back to the property owner. So that would go along with what you're saying, Mike. If it goes this route, there's no reason to have a deposit because you have a recourse to collect.
We're talking about for any homeowner.
Property owner, yes.
Yeah, right.
So nobody would pay.
Because they're going to ultimately.
Well, yeah, you have, that's what I.
So these utility bills will go to the property
Yes.
owner. Okay, another advantage to that is if there is a water leak, is the renter going to care? If they're not paying, if they're letting it get delinquent? Whereas it would give the property owner a heads up that they've got a problem when it starts.
Well, same thing goes for the electric, because, let's say they have an electric water heater, one element's bad, it uses about twice as what it should. And they'll be able to monitor, like a homeowner does. You look at your bill, whoa, why is it up $20 this month compared to, they can regulate that.
That's why we
I think
come up with this way back when, so they could do that, but a lot of renter people, landlords didn't really utilize it.
They should. They're losing money.
Well, our forefathers set this all up, 50 or 100 years ago, and we've tweaked it several times,
Sure.
but,
If this essentially goes into the landlord's name, then they don't need this
They
agreement
don't
at all.
need, yeah, it's almost
Okay,
moot.
That's what I'm saying.
It's almost moot at this point,
Okay.
yeah.
So it'd be a totally different recommendation altogether.
Well, there'd be no need for an agreement if it just.
No, but I mean,
said-
what would be the terminology to make that happen and do away with this agreement? Then, I mean, what's the language? There'd have to be something happen here.
I assume a resolution or. an
Yeah,
ordinance.
that's a resolution.
A
Yeah,
resolution
yeah, that's fine.
to put all
Yeah.
utilities in the property owner's name.
Yeah,
Understanding.
the homeowner.
Just,
Yeah. No, not that, just make all utilities and property owners name separate thing.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's a resolution, yeah.
Like say, the shut-off dates and all that remains the
So,
same.
for clarification, this is gonna get another reading. This would,
If that's what they decide, then there's no need for an
Okay.
agreement. We would need to draft a resolution stating.
that's something you'd write up and bring to the
Sure.
next meeting.
Sure.
I'll make a resolution, 17-10-1, that we do away with this agreement about the utilities between the landowner and the tenants or occupants. Just delete.
have, if we do this, we won't have anything on the books until this new one goes through 3 readings.
The resolution only needs one. If Reed has
Yeah.
something by next month, then next month we'll have something.
So anything will happen in the next month.
So then-
Also, with the rerun of the we need
We do this rather than-
without accounts, not an actual refund.
Well, for some, it might be. Mayor,
Yeah, I think we should take care of that in one meeting. I don't think we should do half of it now and then he gets it wrote up.
Yeah.
Well, we can do that next month when you have the 3rd reading on the delinquent part.
Sure.
So you want to do it now, or you want to do it?
No, I don't think what he's trying to do right now, I don't think we should do. I think we should wait until the attorney brings us up. And then
Well, this agreement, like,
Just one, not the
Recommendations to replace this with a resolution next month. Is that what I'm hearing? The agreement.
Your motion was
Yes.
to get rid of the agreement. That was your motion?
yes.
you're talking about the new one.
This one here, yeah.
Well, if we
Why
never
don't
was
you
put
just
into
table,
effect,
why
there's
don't
no
you just
reason to.
table that
If there's
agreement?
No, yeah. That's right,
Because it
never
doesn't-
voted on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no agreement will be needed.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
It's needed.
no agreement.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still flying under the old one.
Yes.
So we're just taking it.
Then if we, yeah, I'll make a resolution, we table that, a recommendation, we table this new agreement till next month. So then when you come back to this, we could have, would you like this to start in 1st January?
Well, I mean.
I mean, that would give them.
Since it's not gonna happen.
An
I think
additional
I'll-
30 days.
I'll talk to Jerry and Jill, and we'll look at what's the probability of, now, if we do the deposits on hand as a credit, then for the renters, it won't be as much of a difficult because it'll just go to their bill, which will make it cheaper, so that would be fine. And then the landlords, any deposits they have for their personal property or whatever, we can look at reimbursing that. So right now, probably January, the 1st of January would work because again, the new books.
Well, here we've got November, December, and we go to January, even if we went to February or March, as long as it's gonna get done, that would give some of these landlords and property owners time to tweak their system to
I wouldn't want to go-
accommodate what's gonna happen.
I don't think I'd go recommending just because of the conflicting confusion much past February 1st. I think if January 1 would work, that's what we should do. We only have 30 days
Right.
in December without.
You-
200 residential.
I mean, the old one,
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
always been that.
Yeah.
It's always-
200, 500.
so you might need more than more than 1 month to get the deposit back then, people, right?
No, they'll take it off their
Yeah,
electric
we'll
bill.
just
Then
drop
those
the
people
bill.
have to come up, will probably have to come up with a deposit to their landlord.
Yeah.
I got it.
But it's even bill. Anybody on the books.
So they could take a couple months to get this $200 back to them.
No, I think it happened that.
In 1 month, you
Oh,
think?
well, yeah, 'cause it's just a credit, right?
If you're gonna do it as a credit, yeah.
If we do it as credit, we could, when we send the bills out.
What if their bill isn't $200? What if their
It'll
bill?
just apply as a
Is
credit
$200.
until it
If they're
goes.
in that
Right.
residence, then
The only time that there would be money refunded is if a renter, I guess,
moved out.
moved out.
And then they would come in and get, and the way that's done is they read out the meter,
Right.
and they separate the balance, so
Okay.
that they get the balance. We do that now.
So eventually that would all kind of disappear.
And if you pass this in November, what we're talking about, that gives all of December for the landlord to send letters out, say as of January 1, you're gonna pay your utilities to me, and, you know, however they do that. But if you decide that you think there needs a little bit of time for that, I would, you know, you could probably go February 1, but I wouldn't, I think that'd be kind of plenty of time.
You sure don't want to give some to the number. We want to thank
Well, no,
Can I,
in December, they'll pay for November's electricity.
one thing you might think about, and it may have been mentioned, I don't know, it got kind of confusing there for a second. You have renters that their landlords force the renters to have the utilities in their name currently. So they have to put a $200 deposit down. So you would not be giving the property owner their $200 credit. So it would actually go back to the landlord. So some checks may have to be.
If they're still living on that property.
Right, well,
It would
regardless.
go toward their bill, but if they move off that property, then they would
But
get it back. But
once you, if council elects to make the ordinance to where the utilities go into the property owner's name, then the village isn't, you're not gonna take the renter's $200 deposit and apply it to the property owner. So there may have to pay checks generated in order to satisfy all that, which isn't, I don't think, a big deal. Talking with Jerry, I don't think that's a big deal at
Would
all.
there be kind of no bill or something? State deposits are gonna be credited back to their account? Because quite honestly, I'm just gonna throw this out there. It's gonna go like that over Kylan's head. She's not gonna know what, I mean, on the bill say,
Yeah, wherever we
da-da-da-da-da.
bill,
Right.
posting.
Right.
I would
Probably
think
is-
Jerry's gonna have to send a letter to all the property
A letter.
owners anyway, saying you're gonna need to come in and
Okay.
put this in your name, and to the renters
she's
saying.
got a list of who has it on the.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
I just know Kylan would look at it and have no idea unless it's written in black and white, even though it said deposit
in her
refund,
case-
she would have no clue.
But in her case, since she's a property owner.
Right.
It won't be a problem because.
It'll be credit to her bill, but I'm just saying, knowing Kylan, she would see that credit and it would be there. She still would have no clue unless it's in black and white telling her what it is. Not saying my daughter's, but she's a little.
Are the property owners paying a deposit now for the personal property like me?
Yeah, Kylan did.
So I'll be getting a
Well, that you, if you, how you. You did.
I don't think I did either. I paid.
Yeah.
Was it, Rita? Do you remember what it was back?
25.
I remember paying 35.
Maybe
So
I
so
did,
I'll be
and I just
watching
don't
for my
remember.
I don't
$25.
remember getting it back, but I don't
Jerry's
know.
gonna love it.
Merry
I
Christmas.
don't care.
I was just
Take off
told
my
that
December
Amber
bill,
says
because my
they
car
grandfathered
insurance
all
is
the
due that
property
month,
owners.
and
I
my
don't
house
remember if I
insurance
did
all
or
at the same
not.
time.
Well,
But
let's limit this thing so it doesn't get out of hand to when it was enacted that the $200 deposit was put in place. Anything prior to that,
No, Mom's saying she wants hers.
I want my $25 in December.
I thought we did refund a bunch of those when we made it where homeowners didn't have to have a deposit if you had your.
You didn't pay any
I
deposit?
don't remember. I'm not saying I didn't, I don't remember.
Half-timers is kicking in, I can't remember.
I don't remember
I don't
yesterday.
remember doing it
I remember
back
doing
then.
it.
Yeah,
I
I
remember
do.
doing
Well,
it.
sometimes you did, and sometimes you didn't.
I guess, here's what we should probably look at is when the 200, 500 was enacted, that's the number we're using, back to that date,
right,
effective date.
yes.
And
Jerry will have that.
And we will go from that date.
Okay.
So that we don't get caught up into that.
From then on, who
Whatever
paid
the
it, who
effective
didn't.
date was for the 200, 500, and whoever it applied to. I think that was.
But if you find my $35 from 1976.
There you go, Mom, you
I
don't
just
get a Christmas
donated.
present, because you're not gonna give me mine back. No Christmas present for you.
I lived in my house for
I don't
7
remember.
years, and I don't remember paying a deposit, but
I don't remember.
I don't
Sometimes
remember a lot
it
of
just
things.
depends who was on the board and what the rules they made up.
And if they liked you.
Okay, so next month we'll have
Yeah, resolution.
language.
Yeah, draft it up
Okay.
for council to look at, yep.
A final reading and a resolution.
Yes.
I didn't catch it, what was that now? I don't know.
Next month, you'll have a final reading on that one part.
Okay.
And a resolution to clear up all the rest of it. So all that other stuff, just
Okay.
When?
put it away.
But do we want, on this, do we want the effective date put on this agreement then?
Oh, you definitely want to.
I mean, when he makes it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a
I think tentatively, right now, we're looking at January 1.
January 1.
And then if I talk to Jerry and we find out it's not, I'll get a hold of Reed before you see it next month, and then we'll be adjusted if necessary to like February 1. I'll talk to Jerry and Jill to see if that's doable, and if not, I'll get back to you, and then we'll just change that.
All right.
That
Yeah,
effect.
Sounds good.
We want this to coincide with this too then, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why I'm understanding you're gonna look at both on the same day.
So in a way, if you just change the date bounds back when it's passed, if we pass
That
it next month.
ordinance is separate. That one's for termination. The one you
this
just
one's
had the
separate.
second reading on. This new
Mhm.
resolution's gonna discuss the property owner having utilities in their name, so it's gonna be completely separate.
And
So-
they both have,
So we don't need to worry about this.
this
And the
ordinance
agreement
just
is
says that
there.
if you pass.
Okay. Okay.
So we're just tabled till next month on that. We're not there. We're not there.
No, that's pretty good.
Okay, let's move on to marijuana ordinance.
Been there, oh, we did that.
One more.
This is the first reading,
Second reading.
okay. Second, yeah. Second reading.
So this should be 17-9.
10.
Oh, wait.
9, right.
17-9-2 is this
Right.
one.
I'll make a recommendation on ordinance 17-9-2. We have the second reading on the medical marijuana ordinance.
Miller,
Yes.
Knox,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Ewing,
Yes.
Harden.
One question before I vote. Are we gonna come up with penalties for this stuff, or
Look at what?
penalties?
That's gonna be up to state, really, isn't it?
Well, that's gonna be up to council.
federal?
I mean, because there have been, I think, some villages that have tagged it to the criminal code, but I don't necessarily know if that's like the best way to go about it. As opposed to enforce, if somebody's violating it, getting an injunction. There are a lot more, there are benefits to that rather than trying to criminalize the whole thing, because then you're having to.
So it'd be like any other ordinance we have
Yeah.
to file.
Yeah, yes, because if you made it part of the criminal code, then any time anybody violated, you'd have to send somebody out to prosecute it under the village code, and that might not be, the best use of the council's time or resources.
Well, I was ready to vote in favor of it, but I'm too much gray. I'm still voting no.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Okay, any other old business?
I had one thing, I had a resident approach me, wanted to know what's going on with the junk vehicles. Is that being enforced?
What we're doing, since we passed the ordinance, knowing that our council is going to change after the first of the year, that for me to appoint 3 people to that board would have been kind of futile for 3 months. So after the first of the year, whoever's on council, look out.
Okay.
That's when I'll have to appoint, and then we'll have to move forward, because it would have been futile to try to make that all happen.
Pass that along.
Have you heard anything about natural gas with this pipeline is it gonna go through here or?
No, I think it's already gone through, and it's going through the northern side of the county, and I think heading towards like Pennsylvania. But I honestly can tell you that I am still exploring and researching natural gas, and we're just trying to put some calculations together to present to potential funding sources to see if it'd be something they wanted to do. The surveys that came back in the county was very positive and very receptive. So we're just starting to put together what are those numbers, you know, that we can look at. So yeah, it's still on the table and been discussed, and it's been a 7 or 8 year endeavor. But it's encouraging to know that people in the township are very receptive to getting natural gas also.
Okay, let's go to new business.
I have one thing I'd like to ask Council Mayor about this. Kind of goes with marijuana. We have an ordinance, I think, about drug testing employees.
Yes.
And I would like to see that where anybody that has any affiliation with the city, whether it's a council member, mayor, police chief, administrator, should fall right in the same category as employees being drug tested in drugs.
The chief and I are.
Yeah. The only ones that aren't are elected officials. And you'll have to guide us there if that's even.
Yeah, even if you can drug test elected officials, yeah. I'm going to say right now I don't think so, but I would have to confirm.
We are.
Now, I do agree with you, and I've said it all along. Here we are mandating our employees, but we don't have to follow the same rules. I agree with you, but there may be some problems there.
Yeah, I think so.
If the 6 elected officials agreed with it, I may.
That will be give you the answer for next time.
Somebody just asked me one day, how come you guys aren't drug tested? I'm ready, anytime, you know, so. I wouldn't point the finger at you, Fred, or.
Well, I just wanted to qualify, we are.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned me and the chief, I just want you to know we are.
Yeah. That's just something I had on
I
my
have
mind.
been.
Yeah, I've had that question for a lot of years, and it didn't make sense to me, but yet the legalities of it do make sense to me.
We're above the law because we're elected.
Well, there's just, you know, just like police departments and different things, there's immunities on, let's say, a collision. with a police officer. There's immunities and things that I don't know, but could very well be part of the bigger picture. And just because this council may agree, yep, this is what we're gonna do, the next council may say, no, I'm not doing that at all. So that would have to be determined.
Sure thing.
And but what's our recourse then if you feel that perhaps one of your colleagues is impaired?
Well,
What
there
do you do?
there is provisions in the code that if the majority of the council feels that somebody is impaired, inadequate, whatever, that there are certain steps that you can take to correct that problem.
Okay.
If enough of you people get mad at me, you can vote me off. It's only got a couple more months to do it.
That is short.
Okay, new business.
No, first one's mine.
Okay.
For, I'm asking you to amend the appropriation ordinance. We have 2 loan payments that are due at the end of December, for the water fund and the lagoon fund, and it's money we already have. I'm just asking you to allow me to transfer that money into the appropriations.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rule of 3 readings and declare an emergency.
I'll second.
Miller,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Ewing,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Knox,
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 17-10-1, an ordinance to amend appropriation ordinance 17-1-1.
I'll second. Yes.
Ewing,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Knox,
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one, municipal income tax changes. What's happening there, in a nutshell, is the state's still trying to figure out a way that they control those funds and disperse them back as they feel needs to be. Well, basically, the Scott Brown.
So basically, kind of what they're trying to do is for businesses who conduct business in multiple municipal corporations, what the state is trying to do is get them to opt into a system where they just file all their municipal returns through the Ohio Department of Taxation through their tax portal, and then basically Ohio Department of Taxation becomes the administrator of it. They look through the filings, they make the determination as to how much tax is owed to the village, and they would basically just submit to the village whatever amount of the tax they think is owed. And of course, after skimming some off the top for administrative fees, that won't be free at all. Some downsides to this is, well, other than it won't be free, is that we lose control of kind of overseeing what gets filed and what ultimately gets paid into the village. So you're not going to have the ability to sort of review returns anymore for accuracy. There will be no authority to have a return corrected review audited if the village had evidence that a taxpayer was working here or had made more than was reported. There'd be no way to verify rental income in partnerships. Refunds will be approved by the Ohio Department of Taxation, no prior approval from the village. The Tax Commission will be allowed to approve any alternative apportionment schedule. If you don't comply with the state's reporting requirements. They are allowed to take 50% of the monthly distribution. There are a lot of downsides, and I guess currently the other thing that's kind of going on is there's, I guess, kind of a coalition of municipal entities that are kind of banding together to file a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of this particular change for a violation of the Home Rule Amendment in the Constitution. Another thing, this for the village of Waynesfield purposes, a $1,000 contribution, and you can be made a party to the lawsuit. Some downsides to being part of the lawsuit are we don't know if you would have to, if the village would be subject to having to produce documents as far as the village would be responsible for costs associated with litigating the lawsuit if, let's say, for example, the law firm ran out of money and needed more to pursue the litigation, or if the litigation went south and everybody in the coalition would be on the hook for like the court costs. We don't know if the village would be on the hook for that or not. So there like I said, if they challenge it, if you don't want to be a party to it, and if this law firm is successful and it's found unconstitutional, then yeah, everybody's going to get the benefit of it anyway. So that's kind of what's
But the
going on.
potential is that it could change, and it could change for this municipality significantly.
Yeah.
To where CCA would be out of the picture, our means of election tax, change.
Waynesfield, sometimes that base even drops a little bit. But being a part of the budgeting process, and Jill can speak to this more eloquently, but it's a lifeline for the village. I mean, it's really our lifeline.
Percentage-wise, our municipal tax is what percentage of the general fund?
It's the majority of our general fund monthly. We get between $5,000 and $10,000 a month off of municipal income tax.
And when you look at that, the one thing that, what I'm going to just tell it like it is a summary. Big government wants to come in and tell us, that they want to handle our money for us. At one time, municipals used to get government money every year. That over the last 10 years, and essentially what I see here, government saying, we're going to take it back to the simply or expense how we need. We can see our to basically watch our own money, and I strongly encourage you to support anything I don't know, I would go with asking our attorneys what they recommend, whether to get in or not. But I think we, as an administrator, doing our budgets and everything, we need to do everything we can to protect that portion of our revenue stream.
When we first started this conversation, I was thinking you were talking about Dollar General, you know, having one stores all over the country and everything.
No, this is, like I say, we went through this, what, how long ago has that been?
When they redid the,
A few years back, if you remember, they wanted to do
Yes,
something
we-
similar to this, where they handle the money and then they disperse it back as they see fit. Well,
Our own money.
yeah, it got reversed and that didn't happen. But what did happen is they funded less to our budget.
So we need to protect what we have.
Yeah.
Because once we give it to them, if we do it willingly, then we're gonna be at the mercy of what they feel we need.
Are we talking in the millions for the city of Lyman that they might use for this?
Potentially.
As our attorneys, if I don't mind asking on behalf of, is there a recommendation that you feel looking at this preliminary?
I mean, right now, and again, I think the state is kind of wanting to kind of centralize everything. Right now, at least as far as the materials I have, this is going to apply to right now, like businesses. But, and I was talking with Mark about this too. The people who are going to be fighting this are probably the most heavily are big cities, Cleveland, Dallas, Cincinnati, and if they're going to fight it and they're successful, they're going to get the benefit of it. So while you might have a few extra protections by necessarily joining the lawsuit, it's probably not necessary. Based on conversations I've had with Mark, I think there are other villages that said, yeah, we agree with litigating it, but we don't necessarily know if we, want to pony up the funds to
So
be a part
they're
of it.
they're gonna pony up because they've got a whole lot more to lose.
To lose than we do right now. And like I said, if they are successful in the long run in getting the whole thing overturned, then because it's unconstitutional, then all the villages are going to benefit anyway. And like I said, if we do join the lawsuit and the litigation goes south, is the village going to be subject to having to pay a portion of the costs of that litigation?
Right.
It may very well be subject to that. That wasn't clear in the letter that this law firm sent out to everybody trying to get solicitations.
And in a lawsuit of that magnitude, $1,000 we put in would be a drop in the bucket. I mean, that's what we could potentially have to pay.
Yeah, and
Hard to do it.
And like I said, that's only what they're asking for right now. What happens if, because this could drag on, there'd be appeals, this could drag on for a period of years. Well, what happens when we need more money now from all the people who are a party to the lawsuit?
Historically, do you find that when there's a rendering of a verdict like that, would it be exclusionary to those who fought it and everybody else that didn't would still have to?
Well, if the whole thing was unconstitutional, then it would apply across the board.
Okay.
Everybody, every village would get a benefit. It wouldn't just be the people who are a party to the lawsuit only get the benefit, because then that would be there'd be an equal protection issue there.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of get that as a
Sure.
for it.
Sure.
This is a lot bigger than us.
Yes.
And,
But the sad part of it is, this may affect us
Mhm.
more so than it would the bigger ones, because they're gonna have avenues of recourse.
Right.
Because we have limited revenue streams. So I could, I think, I don't know if I'm speaking in error or not, but I think the reason Uniopolis had to disband was because of the cut of government funding got minimized down to where it made it impossible for them to operate. And there was a lot of other communities throughout the state. I agree with what our attorney's saying, that at this point we probably just watch it and look at it. But I think this body here needs to understand that these are the lifelines of small communities, whether or not we're successful. It's just like our utilities, our electric being on top of the water and sewer, and I've said this since I've been here. The only reason we stand for our size of commercial industry and number of our residents are viable as we are because that we're able to provide and bring that revenue in. If you didn't have those, then we would be like a Uniopolis or anywhere else. And so and I know you know that because we talk about this all the time and we see that, but I think it's important to revisit that periodically to realize that very little bit of change in those type of things can devastate us. But I will say, while you're processing what I just said, I am so proud of the fact that when you look at our fiscal officer's report, that month in and month out and year out, we're very fiscal responsible, that we're maintaining and growing a little bit in our, because we do our due diligence and look at those things, and proud of how the village is doing that way.
So I guess we just gotta step back and watch and see, because, you know, like I say, they was wanting that funding by October 30th and all this and that. I think we're gonna be one of the communities, whichever goes, we're gonna be caught in the middle of it anyway, so. Okay, any other new business?
I had somebody ask me if we have given any concessions to the new Dollar General store as far as income tax or stuff like that. I would have no way of knowing. I've been asking that for years about the factory out here, never got an answer, so.
Now, the factory, yes, was on a 10-year abatement. Which ended several years ago now. But they were on a 10-year tax abatement. That was the only village incentive package that I got.
I remember when they were building the school, we were really banking on that 1% income tax of all the construction up there. So was this profitable for us?
We really wouldn't know at this point.
I get the list every month and the
Well,
factories
that's
all
like
met in the schools.
1.3 million they said to build that place. I don't know how much of that would be. We'd only get on the labor, right?
Right. I'm not sure how it works, but when tractors have 20 cities in a row, most tractors look up, they've got 18 or 19 rotator. Until they get it open and there's steady employees there, they probably won't show up on the list of ones that are contributing monthly.
It was moving.
Whenever they built the school, those workers up there really helped the economy here in town, because, I mean, like Tussings, they were in Tussings 3, 4, 5 times a day. If they had a break, they came there. But me,